Y'all, I made a big Warhammer mistake and it's in that box back there, but I have a question first. Do you like my jeans? Because I stole them. Yep, the Four-Arm Emperor gained another angel today. But you don't peruse my page to see a pile of unpainted plastic. Oh, the alliteration. She's got an English degree. You want to hear how they performed on the table. So this is a Warhammer 40k battle report. If you like these long-form videos, there's a whole playlist below that you can check out. My friend who initially taught me how to play Warhammer is also building a second army, and hers is Chaos Space Marine. And we each had about 1,600 points. It's not an official game size, but we just decided, hey, let's give it a try. A nice slow game where everyone understands that we're both new to the rules for our armies. Now, I'm used to playing my Sisters of Battle, which is a pretty fragile army, but tends to benefit from aggressive play. Genestealers, not at all like this. They are somehow even more fragile, and they don't benefit from that kind of aggression. In the lore, the Genestealers are an insurgency that rises up on a planet and slowly takes over, but they do lots of hit-and-run tactics. It involves a lot of disappearing and coming up somewhere else. A pretty different playstyle from these Chaos Space Marines that I had to face. And Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines are a tough, they're not a super tough army, but they're they're like the bog standard. They are the benchmark from which everything is comparatively, weaker or more elite or just what have you. I mean, at least unless you bring a Lord of Skulls, which is a Titanic unit. It's a Khorne unit that weirdly has very good shooting. It's toughness 13 and it is Titanic, so it's a really big model, and this was like a third of her entire army's worth of points. Genestealers do a lot of infiltration, which is where you get to set up actually in no man's land. And then they also do more shenanigans where after you've both set up, you can then redeploy certain units. I think with a little more experience, I'll be able to use this for something more than what I did, which was when she got the first turn, I just pulled a lot of my units out of no man's land because I was scared of them. Her list was like the Lord of Skulls, 3 medium-sized vehicles like a Blight Hauler and a Mauler Fiend, and I think a Disco Lord Discordant. And then I think 2 small units of Chaos Space Marines, and that was it. It was a small game. Now, because Genestealer weapons are not very good, the way they get to do lots of damage is reactive, throwing out mortal wounds through. Then in the fluff is that there are booby traps placed, or just they do lots of like hit and run tactics. And because of all this reactive, and some of them are like once per game, some of them are like once per round, big old bombs of mortal wounds get thrown out. Both of them were at about half of their health before they even got a chance to shoot, and I hadn't even had a turn to shoot yet. Now, to sort of represent how the rebellion, the insurgency, just keeps recruiting more people, and it seems to be an unending tide, they have this really interesting mechanic. When a unit gets destroyed, there's always a chance that it's going to come back in something called Cult Ambush. And what that is it goes in a special pool of reserves, and then that token right there you place on the board, and on your opponent's next movement phase, that unit, any unit that is in Cult Ambush can come out where one of these tokens are. Now, they're not just inevitable, because if an enemy unit ends a move within 9 inches, that token gets disappeared and you can't use it anymore. So there's like this game of kind of cat and mouse where you want to put it close to the action, but not so close that they can make a move and disrupt it. But immediately showing an interesting strength, she didn't have enough units to fill out. This is in her backfield right there. So I had a unit get destroyed pretty early, and I put the token back here, tempting this unit to move off of her home objective, which would lose her points, which she's not going to do. But she kind of just has to sit here and wait for my stuff to come out of Cult Ambush and then attack her in the backfield, which is playing all kinds of mind games, and I'm excited to get better at this. There's also a stratagem that allows units at the end of your opponent's turn that aren't fighting to just go back up into Deep Strike, and everything in Genestealers can Deep Strike wherever they want. I mean, that's how Deep Strike works. And so my units were spread all over the board, and then she counter Deep Struck with some demons in my backfield, but by the time her turn got finished and they can't do anything on her turn, I was able to just drop some neophytes nearby to take care of them. And I didn't have a lot of opportunities, but this mobility is going to be really good at scoring secondaries, and sisters are already good at that, so this is just a fun new way to do it. And that Colt ambush token that I put in her corner, I was able to drop this unit of bikes way back there and then charge onto her home objective. And she was starting to run out of units, and so just because she didn't have a lot of options, she took her 2 Chaos Space Marines there and fell back. Her idea being just to like try to keep my unit busy to a certain extent. And then a very funny, very uniquely interesting to Genestealers moment happened with the secondaries that I drew. So the way you score about 40% of your points in a game is by drawing these random secondaries, and they're kind of like little side quests. And usually you need different units to go do them in different parts of the board, but whenever they overlap and one unit can do both of them, it's a very efficient. But this became almost much of a good thing because I got 2 that involved this unit in her backfield. One of the secondaries was to capture her home objective, which I was doing, so I was good to go. And the second was to perform an action in her backfield. But when you perform an action, you can't shoot or charge, basically taking you out of the fighting for that game. And I really wanted to clean up this unit. And this unit has an ability that when they end a movement within a certain distance of a enemy unit, they're able to throw out one of those big mortal wound bombs. And so with basically any other army, I would have just had to, like, it was a great deal. I mean, scoring 13 points with 1 unit is not worth it. And there's not actually a reason for me to destroy these units. But it was very fun because I was able to literally declare that I was moving like a 1/4 of an inch one way, thus ending a normal move near these, throw out the mortal wounds, perform the action in the backfield, and then just stay on the point to capture it for a lot of points. Now, for all their efficiency with scoring all the secondaries, they really did struggle against the Lord of Skulls. I threw so many demolition charges and bombs and grenades, and they were not getting a lot of work done. So I can definitely see my Genestealers struggling against more elite armies. But for her, there was no reason for her Lord of Skulls to move off the center objective, and I couldn't do anything to it anyway, so I just kind of stayed on the outside, on the outskirts, scoring my secondaries. I didn't get a screenshot of the final score, but I did end up winning, and it was mainly just super refreshing to just have an army that plays so differently from mine. And it's also kind of just making me think about the game in a different way, and I'm really enjoying it. Genestealers are also notoriously hard to paint, so I'm sure it'll take me until summer before this army's finished. It's really good to have someone that you can play these like more casual learning games, because immediately after the game I actually realized that I've been using some strats wrong. And that feels pretty bad, especially when you're playing a weird army like Genestealers that nobody knows how they work. At least locally, nobody plays Genestealers. I've never even heard of anyone nearby who has the army. But because it was a friend and we were it was a friendly game, it was not that big of a deal. But yeah, Genestealers are really cool. Like I said at the beginning, there's a playlist down there if you like these long-form battle reports. The videos don't get a lot of love because they're boring, but you're cool because you stuck around to watch this one. Now better go hide your genes, because I'm gonna steal them.